All right, welcome back. Bruce Porter joins us now for this week's Dollars and Cents segment. Good to see you once again.
Glad to be here.
All right, it's all about planning. That's what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to take a look at today's question, which feeds right into that. Emergency fund versus your savings fund. Why do I need both? It would be so much easier, Bruce Porter, if we had one jar out here instead of two. We could have more money, we'd feel better about ourselves, right? If we put it all in one pot, but no. Why do you say we need two?
Well, here's, the whole idea in trying to make 216 better than 215 financially is having a discussion about money anytime there's an issue. Sit down with the wife. Do we have a need? Do we have a want? Do we have an emergency? Or do we just want to spend money on something that we desire? So the reason that we want to separate this, different things are going to pop up, and the first thing's going to happen, boom, they're going to blow your budget. If you take the time to set up a budget and then something happens, then you're out of whack and you don't know what to do. So if we set up a rainy day savings fund for emergencies and we set up a savings fund for planned expenses, that's identifying a need versus a want. Now, a need might be, a rainy day. I get unemployed, I lose my job, I'm laid off. Maybe I have a medical emergency and I have a deductible I have to pay for, or a car accident, I have to pay a deductible. Different things like that come into, that's an immediate need that I need to take care of out of my emergency money. Now, that may or may not have an impact on your savings, but it could. So savings funds are for planned expenses. Christmas, back to school expenses, saving for a vacation, saving for a planned expense. So now you got to ask yourself, when these things pop up, you need to ask yourself, is this expense a necessity? All right. So let's kind of identify what a necessity is, because we don't want to confuse it with a want, because then it affects our planning. All right.
A need versus a want.
The car breaks down. Well, that's a necessity because you got to have the car to go to work and get groceries and all that. You wake up one day and that pink tile in your bathroom just doesn't appeal to you anymore, and you want to change the tile in the bathroom. Well, that's a want. May not be pretty, but it's nothing you have to spend money on right now. So that's something that you want to dip into your savings plan for, not your emergency funds. So again, it's a conversation about identifying what that expense is. So now we ask ourselves, is the expense urgent? All right, so furnace quits, it's the middle of winter. That would be an emergency expense.
What category does that go in? That was obvious,
my child gets hurt on a playground or ends up in the ER with some stitches. That's an emergency expense. Now, there's a sale at the Best Buy and I want to go buy some new appliances. That's a savings account.
You got to consider that.
Because you don't want to use your emergency money to buy that new appliance, because then if something pops up, you don't have any emergency fallback. So if you've got one bucket of money, it's harder to manage identifying what the expense is. This makes it a little bit easier to identify the buckets of money.
To have those two different ones. And don't you think it gets down to anything in the world that you put in your shopping cart? You could be walking through the store and go, oh, that's a nice new flavor of juice. I think I'll try it. You could put that in a need versus a want category.
That's exactly right.
That would be good to adhere to in your everyday spending and get your kids acclimated.
That's exactly right. Your emergency fund is your insurance policy against the unexpected. The savings account, that's the margin or the buffer between you and a financial stress that's going to cause you to lose sleep and be irritable and things like that. And you also got to understand, these have a purpose. And if you have to spend the money, that's okay, because that's what you're planning for, is the unexpected or the planned expense. And those have nothing to do with retirement planning or other things. But these are going to be spent at some time, and you're planning to do that, so you can feel good about that because it's not affecting your other planning.
And I love the idea of planning when we're starting a new year It's a good time. You know what?
Absolutely.
By this time next year, this may be old hat to you, and me too, if we will start it